from the Department of English at Hendrix, Hope Coulter. Thank you. Gary and I didn't plan this, I swear, but we're going to hold down now the two main themes of literature. He read about sex, I'm going to read about death. Sadly, I don't have his accent, though. I'm going to read a suite of poems about my brother. My brother Thomas died in August of 2005. Some of you have heard me talk about him. He was a veterinarian and a farmer. He farmed with alternative farming methods in central Louisiana. And he died of a weird respiratory disease called adult respiratory distress syndrome, which basically means they don't know what it was. And you'll hear in the poems, this is a suite of 5 poems, you'll hear reference to this, but just to explain it a little bit, he was airlifted from our home, our family home in central Louisiana, down to New Orleans, to a hospital there that has a really good respiratory care program. And that's where he spent the last week of his life. This was August of 2005, and Katrina came and hit New Orleans 2 days after Thomas died. So that was sort of a foreboding that was in the air, and you'll hear it mentioned in one of the poems. And we were able to take his body and leave there. This is a downer, sorry for such a sad suite on a pretty evening. But so we had that. We left New Orleans before the chaos that ensued in those days, August 27th and the following days. But anyway, all that's kind of wrapped into these poems. One of these poems has been published. It was in Carolina Quarterly in the spring issue of this year, and that's the second poem in the suite called Breath. I have my prop here. This is Thomas's hat. And the first poem in the suite, which is called Your Cap, takes off from this material object. It starts as a close observation of his hat and goes on from there. So I will wear Thomas's hat. Suite for Thomas. Your cap. This cap, once red, now sun-bleached, faded from rain and sweat, is blackest on the brim, begrimed with oil and dirt from 1,000 thumb and finger tugs to shade your eyes from sun. Hours in the sun. You coaxed the sugary grasses up from loam into green felt rumpled with clover. You led the thick-skulled cows in and out of improvised pastures, called them by name, sectioned their greens into new rooms. You devised that solar pump to fill their water holes. You fenced the ponds to keep them a place of birds and shy wild animals, multiple flowers and berries, butterflies, protecting the water from the tread of hooves, from ruin. The solar pump worked, but it was slow to draw. So you set up a chair in red, boots on the bumper of your truck. The dirt on your fingers marked the pages you showed me. No bookmark needed. Once water finally lapped the rim of the trough and you closed the book, cut the valve, and head home. Broadcloth, soft from wear and stiffened again from the liquors of your days. Black coffee and sea-level water, drunk for body, starch, and backbone. Then released as sweat, as exhalations, shouts, your burst-out laughter, sidelong comments under one raised eyebrow. How many times you must have passed your hand, filthy with creosote, over the crown of your head, or butted it into the flank of a cow or horse, or flung the cap down in some muddy field, furious at a strand of wire come loose, a stray calf or drop of rain. You'd throw back your mane of hair and roar at the heavens. The clouds growled back. In the truck, you'd crank up world music out of Lafayette, and news on the latest rigged elections, stacked courts, platforms and pulpits, gunning the ditches. Those sons of bitches. I'd be a communist, but they're corrupt too. You'd shake your head, then ask me about some book I had read. Breath. It was only coincidence that you died in New Orleans, 2 days before the great storm. You'd been airlifted to a place that would help you respire. Respire, air, lifted. What beautiful words. Your lungs had quit working. Up and down the rows of the orchards you'd driven your tractor and walked, as if walking on air. The thick, moist air that soon you wouldn't be able to breathe, into which you would rise, inspecting the foliage, teeth clamped around a cigar. Your trees ate light, made leaves and budded, filled out like your daughters, approaching the slope of their prime. How happy you've been that spring, applying the mists and fogs to combat this fungus that blight. Smoking, breathing, eyeing the long ordered rows until, like a mild cold that started, a virus, something wrong with you who'd never been sick, who'd been to the hospital only for accidents. Slip of the grafting knife, lunge by the dog in labor that left you short 2 fingertips and with a twist to your smile, but breathing. How could it be that now you had to be flown over swamps and levees to the tower of intensive care, to this place that would save you? Mom said to me, the hospital where you were born, where I took my first breath. I know, I said, stop it, stop. That's just a coincidence. Dreading some awful symmetry. Power. They ran by power. All the beneficent robots that lowered over your bed, beeping their rhythmic beeps and blinking their regular lights. Thick cords ran to the power strip. What did the red one mean? Red numbers, too, on the monitor, which we tried to decode while we stood around, waiting. Late August, Gulf Coast. How frequently storms run through. Every few weeks a scare, a scurry, a blackout. And you, brother, flat on your back, staring up at the ceiling, beard bristling, needing those goddamn tubes to help you breathe. But God is an awesome God, as another brother says flat out. Electricity ran full flow through the cords and cables the whole time your lungs were fighting. Outside, clouds thickened. Monk parakeets flew, spring green in the emerald treetops below, as I stood staring out of the 9th floor plate glass windows, waiting, hoping to hear that you'd turned the corner. We're out of the woods. We were able to stay till the end. We took your body and fled, and bore you away up country, leaving that terrible place to its fate. The glass doors closed behind us. God spared us the hell of the hospital blackout, the death of machines, then patients, the flooded wards, the people outside pounding on glass to be let in. David was right. God is awesome. Nobody said he is just. The door with no label. Off the ICU lounge was a room with an unlabeled door. We were ushered inside. Neutral couches, dun-colored armchairs, dim light. Plenty of room for daughters, wife, sister, and brothers, for nieces, nephew, girlfriend, and boyfriend, and parents. We sat there, leaking. Our bodies had turned into salt. We were skins of salt water, brimming during the wait, and then once we were told. Soon we'd used all the tissues. I went to find more. In regular ICU waiting, a couple of people stood loitering by the big windows, gazing out at gray sky. No Kleenex. Back in the unit, no one. Only a door ajar to the nurse's inner sanctum, where a woman, burnished brown in her white dress, sat reading. White sweater around her shoulders, gray strands in her hair. She looked up. She might be RN, PhD, head nurse, empress of respiration. Not someone to whom you should stammer your need for a Kleenex box. She stood and let her book fall. She opened her arms. "Oh, baby," she said. "Who was he to you?" "He was my brother." I broke apart. She gathered me to her, soothed and patted me, sent for more tissues. I never knew who she was. In the days to come, what happened to her? My Madam Director of Nursing, to her and her family. What foul waters subsumed, if not her, then someone she loved? Was anyone there for her to open their arms and say, "Who was he to you? Who was she?" The supplicant. When the young doctor entered, who had been giving us updates, he passed the rest of us and went right to Karen. He dropped to one knee with his clipboard on the other. He looked in her face. "Thomas died," he said. There was a second before her head whipped away, the whiplash from first impact, an instant before the cry tore from her. He stayed on one knee, like a suitor proposing a future beyond her wildest dreams, intent on her face, her reaction. He might even have taken her hand.